Hello and welcome into another episode of All City Wrestling. It's Greg Boysen here of CHGO Blackhawks, joined by our pal, our friend, your friend too, Brendan Perlini, our special wrestling super fan extraordinaire. I know the intro sucks this week. Our OTC, our original tribal chief, Big Dave, is taking some well-deserved and well-earned time off before the NBA season gets started, so he won't be here this week or next week, but we're going to keep delivering on our promise of at least one wrestling show per week to you, our loyal All City Wrestling fans. Brendan, how's it going? We're grinding down summer here. We're getting close to fall, which is my favorite time of year.
No, it's good. It seems like I had my 2 weeks. Big Dave's got his, and then you might be right up next, right?
Yeah,
Seems like we're
no,
all kind of
unfortunately, no.
no. We're gonna have to put in a request for you then. But
Yeah,
no,
unfortunately, yeah, we'll have to.
it's
When
been
when you're saving for a wedding in a year, you don't get to go
yes.
on fun little trips now. So,
For sure, I get it. But yeah, a lot going on in the world of wrestling right now. A lot, I should say, almost more so in the internet side that we'll get to here. But yeah, definitely a lot of stuff on my Twitter and Instagram pages that we're going to talk about today. And yeah, happy to be back here for another week with you.
yeah, always a pleasure. I love the taking a break from the monotony of every day of the NHL and chatting about wrestling. It's a passion project for all of us. So it's really cool that we are allowed to do this every week. But as you mentioned, I think today might be one of the few episodes where we may not talk about anything that actually happened in a wrestling ring this past week. There was quite a internet debate going on these days, and why don't we throw our hats into that debate ring in case you missed it? But if you are an avid wrestling follower on social media, you know what we're talking about. Avery Styles, the son of AJ, of course, WWE legend. He had his debut match with GCW a few days ago, which is a independent federation. You may know them. They got big with like the Nick Cage death matches and those type of things.
Yeah, Matt Cardona, right?
Yeah, a lot. Like they've been around for 20 years, so I mean they're doing something right for being an independent federation. But Avery had his first match there, and Nadia Neidhart, she went on an interview and complimented his in-ring debut, and that got Eric Cannon, a wrestler who was on that card, to make a name for himself. And hey, listen, when you're an indie wrestler, he's on the map now, so good for him. He picked the right debate to get noticed. But he responded online on his X account saying, as someone who watched this kid skirt away from helping with every single thing at this very show, I just like to say LOFNL. So I think I don't know if it's common knowledge, but if you're a longtime fan of wrestling, you kind of know paying your dues is a thing. Paying your dues is a thing in all sports. I'm sure you paid plenty of dues coming up through the ranks of hockey, as far as probably from being a kid all the way to the NHL. It's you got to earn your respect. You've got to show that you're one of the guys, especially in indie wrestling. I know enough indie wrestlers personally, and been to enough shows that it's a group effort. They don't have ring crews, they don't have sound guys. It's a group effort. You everybody shows up early, everybody sets up the ring, puts up the chairs, takes tickets, all that stuff, sells merch, 50-50 tickets. If you're not on the card, you're announcing, you're doing all that other stuff. And then after the show, everybody kind of comes together and takes everything down and gets out of there, because usually you're at a bar or a VFW hall or somewhere where like you got to get up and go. So you would think somebody of a wrestling legend would kind of know that, but maybe he didn't. We weren't there, so we can't exactly know blow by blow. But AJ then replied, he was paid to wrestle at GCW, not help put up and take down the ring. That sounds like your job. You just sound like a jealous douche. Ugh.
You know, it's such an interesting one, right? Because we weren't there, so you don't ever know the context of anything fully, right? I'd like to go by what the guy said of like, to pay your dues. I totally understand that. And, as you said, I mean, really in any job, you don't just like, it's funny because I was saying this to a friend of mine where we were trying to get him like kind of into the hockey business. And I'm like, look, you're not just going to walk in and win the Stanley Cup. Like, it's just not how it works. You start down here and sometimes you start for free, even I think back to like when I was playing this game, it was like I was growing up, I wasn't playing it for money or whatever. You move away for junior, you're earning $0 from the age of 16 to 20 and you're living on your own. It's part of the process, right, of building. I understand, I guess, where AJ's coming from a little bit too. Of like, I don't know if you go to Twitter to do that. If they are all, I guess, professionals in the right way, I think that would have been handled backstage. Of like, I can even give a scenario on myself where I told this to my brother recently. We kind of, funny enough, we're laughing about it. But my first year pro in Phoenix, Shane Doan was our captain. For anybody who doesn't know him, played basically 20 years in the NHL, pretty much all with one franchise with Phoenix. And it was our Super Bowl party. And that day we also it was the last day of the Waste Management Phoenix Open in golf, which is like a huge party event. So the whole team had tickets to go to that. We went to that all day, and then the Super Bowl was on later. And so we had the father's trip at the time, and my dad was with me. He was, I'm not going to put all the blame on him here, but he was like pretty tired after the golf event, spending outside in the sun all day. That he kind of said like, oh, dude, do we have to go? Like, it was at Donor's house, the Super Bowl party. Do we have to go to that? Like, I don't really want to go. I'm tired. And blah, blah, blah. Knowing what I know now, I basically should have said, yes, we do have to go, either pop our head in, or, you can go home and I have to go pop my head in.
Right.
I basically ended up saying like, screw it. Let's just go home. Well, the next day for the next week, I pretty much heard it from him a lot. Just subtle chirps of like,
Shane Doan chirping. I don't believe that at all.
We're going on the road here. Well, it's optional for Pearls to show up to the plane. He doesn't have to show up to everything, I guess. I kind of heard that a lot, and I didn't even really. I did it out of pure kind of like, we kind of all spent all day together. Like, I don't think we gotta, but I learned a valuable lesson that day of when something's set up and it's a team thing, even if you pop your head in for 5-10 minutes and just show that you're there and you made the effort to be there. Now I kind of do that where, at worst, if I'm not feeling good, whatever it is, just be there for a bit, show that you care about the guys, and then you can leave. And so I get that for this. Maybe it was a scenario like that, and maybe it's good for the kid like me to learn a lesson of like, now I'll never miss another event like that. You know what I mean? So maybe this is a good learning lesson for him. But again, we don't know the context of. Maybe it wasn't like AJ said. Maybe his thing was just to show up and wrestle, and they didn't tell him. Or I don't know. It's so hard to say, right?
Well. Yeah, I mean, but here's the difference. You obviously learned your lesson, and you sometimes lessons have to be learned the hard way. Lord knows I've learned a lot of lessons in life the hard way, sometimes multiple times. But you didn't have your dad text Shane Doan to defend you, did you? Like,
no, I certainly. I was taking it on the chin for the next week.
To me, the AJ Styles response makes it 10 times worse on the kid. Because now you're going to have daddy pick your fights for you now. And according, if you read, they had some back and forth. AJ and Cannon had some back and forth, and Cannon says he hid in the locker room during all the setup and all the takedown, and then magically appeared when it was all over. Now, if he didn't know that's what he was supposed to do, I'm sorry, that's on AJ Styles to not kind of give him the heads up and saying, hey, this is AJ Styles, who's been wrestling forever and not always in the WWE at the Royal Rumble, where you can walk in 2 hours before the show, have your match, and then go back to your luxury hotel. Like, he was in matches like this. He should have been like, hey, when you get there, I want you to introduce yourself to everybody. I want you to ask how you can help out. Like that, to me, that if the kid didn't know, that's on AJ as well. To be like, hey, respect the business. I would expect more out of a guy like AJ Styles, who gave, his whole life and wasn't around for a lot of his kid's childhood because he was pouring his heart and soul into the wrestling business. You kind of would think that would have been passed down to him. But hopefully, as you said, this is a very valuable lesson learned. And the next time, but am not getting that impression based on some of the other stuff that's come out afterwards, like Brian Pillman Jr. I refuse to refer to him by that stupid pirate name he goes by now. He's Brian Pillman Jr. But he took to social media to defend him, basically saying that like it's different when you're the son of a legendary wrestler. People treat you differently. They just bring you in and bring you like you're kind of separated from everybody else. And he says it's up to the leadership of the indies to show him that way. Not
so
on him
he was saying that he was saying that because of their name, they are supposed to get treated a little bit different, or they do get treated a bit different.
I don't think he said they're supposed to, but he says that it's a fact. They do get treated differently because they're
just from the promotion in general.
Yeah, like these little indie shows, they kind of, he said in his experience as Brian Pillman Jr. coming up that he got treated differently than everybody else. He was brought in separately. He was, kind of had his own little dressing room or whatever. So, preferential treatment that he got. And he says, well, that's not my fault, and, I guess that to a degree. But then, he goes on social media and double down and takes a big picture with all these other Nepo babies, including Avery, saying, oh, we've already set up the effing chairs, and it's him, and I think it was Rey Mysterio's daughter and Bull Buchanan's son and some other all second generation, third generations. I think Dean Malenko's daughter was part of that too. And it's like, you guys aren't doing yourselves any favor here. Like people are, and people are going to get upset over anything, these days, but you're kind of leaning into the whole we're special, we're different because our dads did it. And yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, but I mean, nepotism is a thing everywhere, especially in pro sports. How many younger brothers and sons of great players got extra treatment because of the name on their back, of their jersey, and not because of how good they were. We see it all the time, but it doesn't mean you have to lean into it.
Yeah. This is one business too in the wrestling side that I feel like is very, because it's not, how do I say this? I myself and my brother are a product of, our grandfather playing professionally, my dad playing professionally. So I get it. But in sports, there's actually, a blueprint to get to the next level per se of, my dad knew how to get there from our grandfather, and we know how to get there from the guidance of my dad. So it's different when we still have to go out and perform though, right? And I'm not saying that in the wrestling you don't have to perform, but I'm just saying the show is scripted. It's very much, you were, again, when Vince McMahon or even I guess any of the promoters were in charge, you're performing for one person. And if they like you, they push you on, right? And in hockey, it's like, well, even if the coach doesn't like me, if I score 10 goals, I score 10 goals. Like, so it's very much like, yeah, you can obviously definitely be pushed along because of the name and whatnot, as opposed to other sports where I think you still have to be, Wayne Gretzky's kids. They never one got drafted to the MLB, but one, they never played in the NHL. And that's coming from Wayne Gretzky, the best player of all time. So it is a very interesting thing I find in the wrestling world. It's almost talked about more that, oh, this is such and such's son and blah, 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 as opposed to a lot of these other sports. I guess there is, like, you can argue LeBron James's kid or whatever, but you still got to be good, and go to these universities and get points or whatever. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing. And even, as recently, like we had talked about off stream here in NXT, they brought in another Fatu. And so I wonder a little bit too, just on the behind the scenes of, not taking any credit away from that, family of Roman Reigns and The Rock and all those Samoans. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're good, you're good. That's what I always believe in. Doesn't matter if you grow up. Like, I grew up in England playing hockey. Like, if you're good, people will find you, So if those Samoans are the ones who are putting it out right now and they're the best, all, glory to them. But in a way, like, I wonder if the guys backstage are a little bit like, okay, man, just because Roman and a couple of these guys have had a good run here, when is it now you're bringing in every guy who's Samoan? You know what I mean? That's not taking a shot at them. That's just saying, like, I would be wondering what those guys are saying backstage,
Oh, I agree. I'm sure there's some frustration building, and, pro wrestling is such a weird industry. I mean, but it just goes to show you that, like, how much it's changed. Because back in the day, like, even before, like, the Attitude Era in, like, the 70s and 80s, you had the territories and guys would have to go from town to town and really pay their dues, like, really put in the work. But there was always the promoter's kid that would get, pushes. You look at the Von Erichs, their dad owned the company. You look at, there's just a lot of that. Like up in Minnesota, Vern Gagne owned the AWA, and his son was a top star there for 20 years, even though he probably wasn't that good. But when your dad owns a company, you're gonna get, look at Calgary with Stu Hart, and all the Hart kids were the top guys there. So it's natural. You want to take care of your own
too, right? Vince or Stephanie, and
they had their daughter singing, God Bless America before SummerSlam. Gee, how'd she get that gig? Like, it's, and wrestling is unique because it's not like, you could be 6 years old and watch a pro wrestling match and say, that's what I want to be. I'm going to join the pro wrestling team at the Park District and learn how to do this. No, when you're a kid and you watch hockey or you watch football or basketball, you can go to the park and play basketball with your friends. You can join a basketball league. You can play hockey as a kid and naturally progress. Pro wrestling is different. Like, you don't start that until, you're almost an adult in most cases. Sometimes these guys started after they've tried something else, whether they were, college football players or whatever. Then they say, hey, let's try this pro wrestling thing out. So it's different in that way. So that's where the second generation, third generation wrestlers have an advantage because they've been around it their whole life. So they got that in. So I think they're always looked a little differently, like, oh, gee, yeah, here we go. You got the easy path here. So you would think guys like that would want to prove it even more. To be like, no, I'm not going to show up and just be AJ Styles' kid. I'm going to be Avery Styles and stand on my own. What can I do to help you? Like, that's where I think there's a disconnect with the mentality that hopefully next time he shows up to one of these indies events, he's going to be the first guy there, saying, hey, I need to make this right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, in a way too, of just playing a little bit of devil's advocate on the side of the Styles family. I know from myself, I mean, my dad taught me a lot of things from, like, he didn't have a hockey equivalent career to AJ Styles. I mean, my dad only played 7 games in the NHL, but, was still around it, played there, played many years in pro. And there are still a lot of things that I learned that either A, he forgot, or, B, just didn't tell me. Maybe I wanted to learn, have him learn it on his own. Maybe it's a different day. I don't really know. That I think there's a lot there like that. Because you would think even my dad, in the sense of where we got in trouble with Shane Doan, would have been like, no, like, it's proper, professional for you to
Right.
pop your head in and, at least let's go there for a little bit, right? So there might be something there too where, I don't know, maybe AJ even forgot to tell him that, or of like, hey, just go out, have a good match, and maybe he didn't even tell him show up, do the ring, any of that, and then after the fact tried to save his butt a little bit online, and who knows what it really is, but yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out, and I think there's definitely a big lesson in there. Hopefully, the guys on Twitter kind of had a little bit of their, I hate to say 5 minutes of fame. Hopefully they kind of do something with that. They got some eyeballs on them now, but yeah, this kid we'll see where he goes with it for sure. Hopefully it's a big lesson.
Well, if GCW is smart, and as I said, they've been an indie company for over 20 years, so they know what they're doing. Their next event, they would book Eric Cannon versus Avery Styles in a chairs match and just have them throw chairs at each other.
Yeah,
I mean, that would get buzz.
great.
That would get people talking. That'll get eyeballs. That'll probably sell some tickets. I'd pay attention to that. You've got this attention to you, as they say, no such thing as bad PR. I would say 99% of wrestling fans had no idea who Eric Cannon was before this week, and now people know him. Take advantage of it. Go out there and maybe turn this into, which is probably what he was trying to do from day one. Like, hey,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
I'm going to pick a fight with AJ Styles to get some attention, and AJ Styles took the bait, and now this guy is getting exactly what he craved. So good for him. That's smart. In this business, you've got to be, you've got to separate yourself. You could say it's the same, with podcasting and all that stuff, and you got to do something different. So, hey, getting one of the greatest wrestlers to ever do it call you a jealous douche online, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, I mean, when you think about it too, it's a very, very smart move by that guy. Of whether it's true, not true, whatever, he's definitely created the buzz for himself. So, like you said, I mean, they would be smart to link that all together and do a big build up here to something. I mean, they definitely got all our attention for sure.
And who knows? This could have been the plan from day one. Like, let's get some attention here. It's wrestling. You never know what's real and what's
and maybe
not.
Even AJ. Yeah, I know. Maybe AJ's even a part of it, right? And he comes in.
Yeah, they could be working us all right now, and we're all going to sit here and go, should have seen it coming, son of a. Which would be great. I love stuff like that. I mean, that's what makes pro wrestling so much fun. Where you're like, are these guys real, or is this part of the show? That's when they blur the lines between script and reality. That's when pro wrestling's at its best.
Yeah, no, I would like to see it now. That's kind of got me excited, and I haven't really paid too much attention to this promotion, hardly at all. You see the online kind of YouTube stuff, where you mentioned the Nick Gage stuff and that, and I remember there was a little YouTube series on them about who did I mention there earlier in the podcast, who came back to WWE. The God, he went by the indie guy, Matt Cardona, and following him and to see, and it's such a different vibe there too, right? Of last week we talked about the WWE Unreal show behind the scenes and what it's like, and these guys are like, if you haven't seen it, I mean, check it out. I'm sure it was done by Matt Cardona as kind of like a mini documentary. I think it's 20-30 minutes, maybe max, and they're getting dressed out in the hallway of some dumpy looking place, and like proper, what you would think that sort of event kind of does. And it's not like, putting them down or rational. It's just different. It's a much more raw vibe, right, around that promotion, instead of the polished, seeing CM Punk jump in a cold tub after his match of SummerSlam or whatever it is. Like, it's a very raw way of doing things. So it's pretty cool though. They put a lot of effort, and good on those guys for trying to make a fun event. I'd love to, maybe one day us three can go to something like that, because I've never been to, outside of AEW, WWE, like a local kind of show where there's, it's in a gym or something like that. So I'd like to experience that side for sure.
Yeah, those are fun. And Chicago is blessed with a lot of indie shows. I've got some good friends of mine that actually are part of the POW Wrestling who does monthly shows, a couple shows a month. They do VFW Hall up north, and they've got a bar with a special events room they have monthly shows at. So we could definitely check one of those out. I know there's the Logan Theater over there in Logan Square puts on big monthly shows that Big Dave and I were thinking of checking out. So I love the indies, man. I mean, that's real pro wrestling to me, where it's like that's where you find the people that really love the sport because they're trying to, come up. They're doing this in front of 200 people for $25 because they want to get to that next level. That's where you see it's not necessarily the greatest wrestling matches you're ever going to see, but it's a different experience where it's not as polished. It's not, you don't have the production, but you have people that are just passionate about the business, and that's how it should be. Those are a lot of fun. So if we're definitely going to do that, and when we do, we're going to throw it out there that we're going to go, and we'll get some social media content and stuff. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like that. That'd be a lot of fun for sure. You want to talk about Solo Sikoa right now and his rise?
Speaking of fun,
recently, and
that guy's been having a ton of fun lately.
It seems like this guy has been all over everywhere on my Instagram page right now, and thought it was kind of fitting too of going to another. I guess is the word Nepo baby for this one too, kind of count, but yeah, he's had his rise. For anyone who hasn't tuned in the last few weeks here on in WWE, whether it's on Raw or SmackDown or whatever, really kind of being back involved with the Bloodline story. And I don't really know what your thoughts are, Greg. I was actually never a huge fan of the full Bloodline story. For whatever reason, it might have been a Roman Reigns thing. He was never really my guy when they were sort of throwing him on you. Maybe there was some bad stuff from that. I don't really know, but I never connected to him. And so even when he was going through his whole character here the last couple, call it whatever, 5-6 years during COVID, right? And, evolving into who he is, I respect him, but I still feel like that whole Bloodline thing for me is so. Some people say it's the greatest of all time, greatest story of all time.
You're gonna get a text message from Big Dave when he hears this. He's gonna.
For me,
he loves the Bloodline, but
I like it. I don't think it was like the greatest of all time. I think of Austin and Rock and those guys when I think of greatest of all time stories. Even throw Vince McMahon back in there. I loved some of those stories back in the day, but. Solo comes back around to the Bloodline story here in basically culminating in the other night on Monday, him doing sort of basically a match to now return to the Bloodline. He loses the match. Now he has to return. But I will say where I'm going with this is not being a huge fan watching this week's Raw. I was actually really, really, I guess, drawn into the story. Because I know right now Solo seems like he's like white hot, kind of the crowd loving it. Jay kind of does his speech to him saying like, this your warning shot, pow. And he kind of does like a duck. And it seems like he's like talking not from script, saying like, damn, everyone all right? Okay. Like, and then goes back into it seems like he's flowing right now in his character, and you can see he's having a lot of fun doing it. And I wanted him to stay on his own because you could tell like, whoa, this guy's a different character to what he was a year plus ago, and, loses the match. Now I'm even kind of more drawn in. Originally, I was like, they had him lose. Like, he's got to go back to the Bloodline now. But now I want to see how, okay, are they still going to let him with this character, like, be funny on the mic? And because he's almost a little bit, I don't want to say silly, but the way he talks now is a little bit, it's just almost like goofy in a way, almost Rock-esque is as well, or I don't want to say the Rock, but it's similar in a way of like playful. You understand what I'm saying? Like it's very playful and not like, oh, this is reading the script from this, line to line. So I'm very interested to see where they go with this because he's generating a ton of buzz right now online.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. The bloodline never. I was kind of middle of the road with that. To me, it was like it lasted way too long. It was kind of
Yeah.
like the same thing every week, every week. And then when you had the two factions of it, it got a little more interesting. But now it's like it's back again. And it's like, didn't we do this for 5 years? Do we have any other ideas that we can roll with? But I like you said Solo's character now. I think that's the biggest difference in him is that he's not playing a character anymore. He's being himself for the first time since he's been in the WWE. When he came in, he was that kind of like henchman, silent assassin, tough guy, you know, with his Samoan spike, and he just kind of stood there looking mean and was a badass and beat people up, you know. And then he had the second phase where he was trying to take over the bloodline, and we saw a little more personality for him, but he was always guy serious. Now I think he's just being Solo Sikoa and having fun with it. He's still a badass. We know that. He's still a guy I'm not messing with at any time soon, but he's also a guy that can have fun with it. And it looks like you can have fun with too. So I think we're seeing his personality for the first time in his career. And usually when guys are like, their gimmick is to be themselves, that's usually when they excel the most because they're more comfortable with it and they can, you know, take it to new levels because they're just being themselves.
Yeah. It's fun to see too that how do I say, like just someone's evolution, you know, to see, like, I had watched an interview where when he had left, I think it was when he had left the bloodline, like gave an actual interview off character or whatever. He had said, I had never did a promo pretty much the entire time I was in the bloodline. And one of the first few weeks he was out of it, they were like, okay, here's the mic, here's, you know, go talk. And he was like, holy, like really nervous about it. And to see it go from basically a guy who never talks to now standing in the crowd doing his promos, getting everybody to pop and to laugh, and like I was really entertained. Honestly, I was really entertained watching this past week's Raw. In fact, I had said that is probably the most hooked I've been in a while to seeing, like, whoa, where are they going with this one? You know, are they bringing it back to the? I think it's definitely going to be a new look bloodline too, right? With now that you have some of these characters that have evolved like that, like Fatu. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I couldn't give you a direction of what I think they're going in the long run here. But I was definitely very skeptical, like you, where it was like, we're not just going to do this same old thing again, are we?
Yeah, and it's been a little different. I mean, you know, a couple of matches that Roman Reigns has actually had since they started doing this again. You know, he's not relying on Jimmy and Jay to come in with run-ins and shenanigans. Like, he is winning these matches on his own for the most part. So that's a little bit different. So we'll see how they go. But it is they are making it more intriguing than I thought when they first brought it in. But having Jacob Fatu and Solo now with these new personalities as they've evolved, if they've got more comfortable in their roles, it's puts a better spin on it than just Roman and the Usos, you know, with Paul Heyman every week. That got kind of stale.
Yeah.
But
Do
yeah,
you think they would bring Paul back around at any point? Because I was actually
I don't know
about that earlier.
I don't think they need to, because now that we know Solo can talk for himself and Jacob is great on the mic and Roman's always been good on the mic, you know, you don't need a mouthpiece really. You know, but we'll see what they do. You know, Paul Heyman, they may put Paul Heyman, you know, with somebody else. I mean, the Vision stuff is, you talk about things I don't care about. That's on the top of the list. Like, I don't care what, like, that went from being, oh, this could be really cool to, ugh, you know, in a hurry.
Yeah.
So we'll see. You know, maybe I wouldn't be shocked if Paul Heyman becomes Obafemi's guy here in a few months, kind of like passing the torch. And he loves those really guys. Cool. So definitely some directions they can go. Real quick before we wrap up this week, I just wanted to give a shout out to you know, one of the legends of pro wrestling, the voice of our youth for sure. Good old Jim Ross had brain surgery this week that according to Conrad Thompson, who hosts JR's podcast along with almost every other wrestling podcast out there besides ours, spread the report from his JR's daughter that the surgery went well and he's doing good and should be actually back home by the end of the week. So we're happy to hear that. There's been very few voices in all of sports, let alone pro wrestling, that stick to me like Jim Ross. So you think of so many of those big moments that he called. For me, it's like him and like Pat Foley with the Blackhawks and, Harry Carey with the Cubs as a kid. Like those, you just attach it. I attach Jim Ross's voice to wrestling.
Yeah. No, great to hear the news on that. Cause he is, like you said, I mean, legend of the game. Just comes back so many memories of watching different things with him announcing. And it's crazy too, how you tie that, somebody's just voice to a certain, even, scenario or childhood or whatever it is. Right. So that's really cool to hear. Super happy to hear he's doing well and in good spirits and whatnot. And, if you haven't seen it too, one of my favorite clips, is him getting mad at Triple H basically on YouTube and calling him a son of a beep multiple times in the thing. It just keeps rolling clip after clip. It's funny. Every now and then it'll pop up on, it's either on Instagram or YouTube. It'll pop up on my thing and I watch it and it's like a 2-minute straight, just him, different clips swearing at Triple H, which is pretty hilarious. So legend of the game. I'm glad to hear he's doing well.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of All City Wrestling. Thank you guys for checking us out. Make sure you are subscribing to the YouTube channel and sharing and telling all your friends like the podcast. If you love wrestling podcasts and you want to get more of it in your algorithm, you hit that like button, hit that subscribe, tell your wrestling buddy, your wrestling fan friends that, hey, we're doing this here. Come check us out. That helps us out as well. You can follow us on X. We've got an All City Wrestling X account. You can follow us there. We like to post stuff there as well. So we're building the momentum here, and we appreciate all the eyeballs. We'll be back next week for sure. We're working on. We may have at least one of our other All City wrestling experts who actually takes part in indie wrestling in Arizona. So he might have some good insight on this whole Styles debate. If we're still talking about that in a week, probably not. There'll be eight other things people are clutching their pearls about online that we could talk about. But thanks again to Brendan Perlini. Check him out on social media as well. He's a big time Instagrammer. And we will talk to you guys next week.